Nate Chrisman from Performance Partout. I'm just got back from the IFO race in New Hampshire, and we actually kind of lucked into an FIP good result. And but we had our car out for the first time this year, and it's the first run or first day at the track with this new Haltech system. So I kind of thought it would be kind of fun to go over the data log together from our last run, which we made 3 runs. So let's dig into this. So the first thing, we're in the Haltech Datalog viewer software, and we're reading an internal data log that the Haltech Elite ECU recorded internally. So we have RPM, vehicle speed, the transmission 1 to 2, transmission 2 to 3, and the transmission RPM input from the factory sensor on the end case of the transmission. So as far as judging when the transmission shifts from 1 to 2, the ECU commanded it at 70, just before 7,700 RPM at 41. We revved to 8,200 RPM. That's perfectly fine. We're going to leave that alone. 2 to 3, commanded it at 81, shifted at 83. Perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm not going to make any changes to the shift tables, but I'm going to show you what they look like just for the fun of it. So we've got the 1 to 2 shift occurring at 37 miles an hour. The transmission 2 to 3 shift happens between 82 and 83 miles an hour. So in order to change the shift RPM, you're basically changing the vehicle speed at which this table decides to change that output from on to off. So to go back to this, we're not going to make any changes to the shift schedule. This is RPM, boost pressures in blue. Closed loop boost control duty cycle is in pink, and this straight line here is the target for boost pressure. The target's adjusted by a rotary knob that's on the dashboard. So we've got the target set on this run for 32 pounds of boost, and the duty cycle's like just flat at 5, like the minimum amount. So I wanted to see if the ECU could just continue to closed loop raise the boost pressure duty cycle till it hit the target, which is what this did. It took it till it got till 3rd gear to do it, but we got to 33 pounds of boost at the top of 3rd gear, and then settled down to 32.6 psi of boost. The top of 3rd, it took 27.7% duty cycle. So here's what I want to do. I want to go into my map, go to boost control, closed loop duty cycle. So okay, the way this works is we have a rotary knob on the dash with 12 positions. Each position corresponds to a different target boost level. And then the ECU goes to, when you turn the knob to target 32 pounds of boost, this was the duty cycle that it started at. So we know 5 doesn't do anything. 5 only makes 25, 24 pounds of boost, something like that. So we're going to type in 27 and make this whole row 27. So we know we can make an educated guess and say, let's put 24, let's put 20, and for 34 pounds of boost, let's say we know at least 27. So there we've done a quick rough fill-in of our boost control, target boost control, or target pressure base duty cycle map. So the next time we go to the track, if we leave the knob at 30 or 32, we should be fairly close, and it should just go right to 32 and stay there. At low RPM, we may have, if we get a little overshoot, we may have to back these down to 25, 24, something like that. So, but that's something we can kind of, fill in on each successive run. So, air fuel ratio. It was very rich on the converter, spraying 20% duty cycle on a nitrous solenoid with a 100 horsepower nitrous jet in it. So we know the amount of fuel we're adding. We have a big rich dip here, another rich dip there. Each time that the nitrous shut off, it leaned out. Nitrous turned on, it richened up. So we have the ECU set to a short-term fuel trim that's very aggressive. It'll add or subtract fuel when your actual air-fuel ratio from the wideband does not match your target lambda. So because we are so rich while on the converter, the ECU is pulling out upwards of about 12.5% fuel. So then once the nitrous shut off and that what I suspect to be significantly too rich fuel correction went away, Then we went lean in first gear and part of second gear, and then you can see the trend line here going back to zero. Sorry, zero is up here. So I think our fuel table is pretty good once it's on boost up in second and third gear. I think all of our problem is while it's on the converter. So I'm going to make a change to the amount of fuel that's added while the nitrous is flowing. So we have another rotary knob on the dash that adjusts the amount of nitrous at 0 mile per hour. And this part of the table from here to here, we're not using yet. That's while going down the track. Right, for right now, we're just spraying nitrous on the converter. So at 20% duty cycle, the fuel correction would have been running on this table. So we know 5% was way too much. So let's go down to 2.5% fuel, which we can actually do for 0 and 1, 2.5. And that probably means for 30%, 10 is going to be way, way, way too much. So I'm going to make some hasty decisions here and just go, whoop, P, good Lord, percentage change, -50%. So we're going to cut the amount of fuel down by half when it's on the nitrous. And this table we're going to have to experimentally fill out as, you know, each successive run. We're going to use nitrous in different application or in different amounts on the starting line, and then different amounts going down the track. We're going to have to adjust the amount of fuel flow, additional fuel flow that's added to correct for the dry nitrous. So let's go back to the log. What's the next thing? EGTs. I think these EGTs follow each other fairly nicely till we get to the middle of second gear, and then they start to diverge. We have cylinder 1 in red, 2 in yellow, 3 in green, 4 in blue. We're doing rainbow colors today. The EGT for cylinder number 2 is just dropping off with RPM. And we have 3 getting hot, getting upwards of 17. The top of third gear, going through the traps, we have damn near a 400-degree difference between our hottest cylinder and our coolest cylinder. And they're all getting the same amount of ignition timing, as far as I know. So this leads me to believe we have a fairly big discrepancy in fuel flow from our fuel injectors. So the next time out, I'm going to swap the number 2 injector for the number 3 injector, make a run at with the same fuel map, and see if these two graphs reverse. And we have yellow running away and green hot. Or, you know, we want to see if the fuel flow from each injector is actually the problem. But this does lead me to believe that, like, it might be wise for me to send the injectors out for a cleaning and flow testing again, or possibly grab another set of injectors. But that was something that was interesting. As far as this tab, we have the NOx sensor. The yellow's threshold, red is this reddish pink color is the 2G NOx sensor on the back of the block, and we're staying under the threshold. This threshold was actually set by Haltech. That was their default file. It's just more data to look at. It's not actually doing anything right now. As far as oil pressure, looks good. Goes from a low of 67 on the converter, 86 at the top midway through first gear, and then hovers in the 80s all the way down the track. Air temperature. We were at 90 on the starting line, only hit 100 up top at the traps. That's awesome. That 6-inch thick intercooler is definitely doing its job. Coolant temperature, where I did get a warning on the dash on the return road that we hit 200. I set a warning on the kind of on the low end just to see what happens when the warning goes off. And okay, 189 to 200. That's fine. That cooled back off by the time I got back to the time slip shack. And then we have some data to look at with exhaust manifold pressure in yellow. And there's our boost control. That's opening an external wastegate on the O2 housing. And we have a math channel that's calculating engine pressure ratio, the difference between exhaust manifold pressure in yellow and boost pressure in blue, which you can see it drops off with RPM as the exhaust pressure rises and boost pressure, well, it's the ratio between the two. So I have kind of a sneaky suspicion that if we run the car on the dyno, that this engine pressure ratio curve will match the slope of the torque output on a dyno. So this is kind of the fun stuff of looking at these logs. I made changes to the boost control map. I made changes. I'm not going to make any changes to the fuel, the main fuel. I'm only going to make changes to the nitrous